you end up finding other people who may not speak your exact same language, but there's a energetic connection. There's a commonality.
I'm Michael Max, and this is Geological, the podcast that curates East Asian medicine and methods through the power of conversation. I recently had a podcast conversation where the guest spoke about the constitutional and the conditional, that there's an aspect of who we are that's baked in. We simply are that. For better or worse, there's a way that we're structured and wired together, a way our personality works, and a way that our spirit expresses and unfolds into the world. We know we are in our constitutional alignment when we feel like ourselves. It's when something comes along that takes us away from that sense of who we are, when we're not quite ourself. It's a condition that we're in. It's outside the usual operating parameters of what makes us who and what we truly are. You'll hear this in clinic after a potent acupuncture treatment. People say things like, I feel more like myself than I have in a long time. In a sense, they've returned home. Returned to being the kind of critter they actually are. There are schools of thought that our constitution is a kind of adaptation to the world, a kind of compensatory off-kilter balance that we strike to navigate our life and circumstances. Maybe. But what if our constitution is more like a guiding star, a true north that gives us an edge and perspective that allows for the Shen and the Zhi, the Shaoyin fire of the heart and the kidney, to express the Ming, the potential that gets translated as destiny. Such a big word, that one, destiny. Every time I hear that word, I imagine a deep, resonant gong being struck. Destiny, bong. I tend to get nervous and keep an eye on my wallet when I hear people going on about destiny. It seems so often it's a baited hook with a sales pitch aimed at my unspoken insecurities. What if destiny is simply destination, a direction of interest to aim at, a xiaoyao itinerary to travel, a terrain to traverse? What if our constitution is wiring for a certain kind of journey, a set of capacities and challenges that allows for a particular kind of experience? And when we are in our constitutional capacities, we're on track. Even if it looks like a lopsided wobble from the outside, what if it is our lopsided wobble that is the thing that's right about us? That it's not something to be fixed, but rather cultivated. That the conditions that take us away from our true north are the lessons required to find our way back home. Knowing our path when the path is not clear, especially when at the beginning and all you have are hunches and well-meaning advice that fits like hand-me-down clothes. Beginnings are fraught with peril and potential. Navigating that terrain, it's a bit of a hero's journey. In this conversation with Katie Munger, we explore the nudge that took her to a small rural community after acupuncture school, and how that small town grew her into the practitioner that she is today. There's a lot of ways to serve a community with the work that we do. And in a small town, you only get to do that if you're a member of the community. And therein lies the magic. It's a good story and a good life. And we'll get into it in just a moment, right after a few words from the folks who have solutions to some of your clinical challenges. These conversations come to you through the generous support of our sponsors and members. Blue Poppy, your new one-stop shop, has speedy shipping options on everything that you need for your clinic. It's Women's Health Month at Mayway Herbs. Check out their new website for learning resources on helping women with herbal medicine. Are you a creature of habit? How about making a change that helps your patients and the planet with AccuFast needles? And later in the show, raising your fees It doesn't have to be a difficult process. Jane has helpful suggestions on making it easy and effective. And finally, have you considered that having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things that you can do? Julie Bear Don't Walk has, and she can help you do something about it too. Do be sure to visit the sponsors page on the Qiological website to take advantage of all the special offers our terrific sponsors have for listeners of the podcast. Picture this. Your clinic is buzzing with patients, and then you realize that you're down to your last box of needles. No need for panic, because Blue Poppy, your one-stop shop for all your acupuncture needs, they ship orders received before 3 p.m. on the same day. With a quick visit to Blue Poppy's website, you can order premium needles, herbal formulas, and that special Dr. Bob's oil that your patients love. Blue Poppy understands practitioners can't keep patients waiting. That's why they strive to get you what you need when you need it. From high-quality Chinese herbs and formulations to acupuncture supplies and clinical essentials, Blue Poppy has served practitioners for nearly 40 years with products that meet the highest of standards. Discover everything Blue Poppy has to offer by visiting www.bluepoppy.com, and don't forget to subscribe to their mailing list for exclusive offers and more.
Hi folks, I'm Yvonne Lau, president of Mayway Herbs. May is Women's Health Month, and as a women-owned and women-run business, we especially love how Chinese medicine can support wellness through every stage of a woman's life. So in this month's newsletter and podcast, we're covering topics like PMS, pregnancy, menopause, and osteoporosis. We'll share expert insights and effective treatment strategies you can put to good use in your clinic. Our Plumflower brand line includes herbal tea pills, tablets, extract granules, and organic herbs, all of which you can find on Mayway.com, and where you can also find articles, videos, and other resources to support your practice. Since 1969, Mayway has been a trusted source for high-quality herbal products. In these challenging times, please know that we remain committed to keeping our products accessible and affordable so you can take care of yourself and your patients. As always, thank you for supporting Real Chinese Medicine.
Daily habits and routines feel comforting, familiar, easy, automatic. That's the power of repetition. You've worked out the kinks and can do it with your eyes closed. But what if you shook things up? What if you ditched the old routine and tried something new? Hi, I'm John Sten. I've practiced acupuncture for over 30 years, and together with my wife Kelly, we created the world's first eco-friendly acupuncture needle. The AcuFast earth-friendly needle system cuts your packaging waste by 60 to 90%, depending upon your needle type, speeds up your needling, gives you more control, and best of all, while you're healing patients, we plant a tree for every 2 boxes your clinic uses. Thousands of acupuncturists have already made the switch. In just the last year, they've helped plant over 16,000 trees. Since we started, that number has grown to over 50,000. So break the routine. Be the change. Visit acufastneedles.com. Your patients and the planet will thank you.
Katie Munger, welcome to Qiological.
Thank you. This is really a heartfelt moment for me. I was telling you how much I enjoy listening to your podcast.
What do you like about it?
Okay, so I'm in a small town.
Here, give us a quick pitch for the podcast.
I'm in a small town with lots of healers, but no acupuncturist.
Ah, like St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, is it like that there too?
Well, I don't know about a lot of healers, but we don't have many acupuncturists.
Well, there's a lot of acupuncturists north of me, up in Tucson, Phoenix, but down where I'm at in this little pocket of the Santa Cruz Valley, I'm the only one. And so it gets a little lonely. And your show is my connection because we speak this unusual language and I get to hear it.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that got Qiological started was a previous podcast I did. And what got that started was I felt kind of lonely here in St. Louis. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to talk to my acupuncture friends because I used to live in Seattle where I could do that every day. So
we really do speak a different language.
Say more about that.
Speaking a different language, it's a whole nother philosophy. It's a whole nother way of looking at our bodies, at our place in the universe. We talk about organs and channels and the relationships in a completely different way than other professions do.
We live in a different universe.
Yeah, and I think that's what the podcast, when I listen to the podcast, it reminds me that I'm not alone.
Mm. Well, yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're in a beautiful place. Way down in the outback. What are you doing down there? How'd you get there?
Well, I graduated from the Arizona School of Acupuncture in 2003.
And just roll downhill?
Well, it had to do with a relationship. I was following a relationship, and he was from Tubac, Arizona. And that's how you differentiate how long a person has been here. If you've been here a long time, it's Tubac. If you're new, it's Tubac. Okay.
Yes.
So
100%.
I followed my heart, and there was nobody doing it down here. And I thought maybe that was a sign, like that it wasn't going to be accepted, that people weren't ready for it. Tubac has a golf resort. It's a place where a lot of people retire. It's south of Green Valley, which is definitely a retirement community. Lots of age-restricted neighborhoods. But in Tubac, there's no age restriction, but it's a little bit of an older crowd.
Mm.
And this was 20 years ago. I came down here in 2004, and yeah, I opened up shop.
Yeah. You know, I'm just thinking about this, right? Retirement community, older people, probably conservative, right? And you roll in with acupuncture. Like, how's that going to go? How did it go? I mean, first of all, congratulations on 20 years.
Thank you. I have to say this valley raised me, truly. I was 27 years old when I moved down here and pretty fresh out of school. And as we practitioners know, most of what everything we learn is in the field. And so this community really taught me how to be an acupuncturist. I did have a part-time job the first 6 months I was open, but after that 6 months, I was working as much as I wanted to.
You were busy. Yeah.
I was. I was.
You're the only game in town.
I'm the only game in town, and in a small town, word of mouth truly means something.
Yes, it does. So don't screw it up.
Yeah, I mean, I only see one person an hour.
Uh-huh.
I have one treatment room, and when I'm with a person, I am with them completely. Even if I step back to be in my notes, I'm can hear them breathing. I'll go in and do like a cranial hold. That was one thing when I was in school. We learned some cranial sacral. And so I'm always sort of touching in with the person. And I think that people really like that. They appreciate that.
I think there's a lot that people appreciate about acupuncture. For sure, being listened to, either with words or attention, hands. I mean, listening with hands. How many people get listened to with hands, right? It's a little rare.
Well, that was one of the gifts of the school that I went to when I started at the acupuncture school. Tuina was not part of our program, and they added it, and we had a year and a half of Tuina. And at first, I was so upset about it when I was in school. I thought, I didn't come here to do massage. I want to do acupuncture.
I know.
But as it turned out, my hands have really been one of my greatest gifts. And yes, there are some people who really don't want to be touched. And I respect that. You can kind of tell actually when you touch a person how receptive they are. But my experience is that people do want to be touched. It's part of them being seen and heard, witnessed.
Yeah, for sure. I love the phrase, this town grew me up.
It truly did. When I moved down here, I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. We were living in a trailer in Amato, very rural. We built a house off the grid, and I really grew up in this town. And my clientele, it has changed over the years. When I first started down here, I would say I saw a lot of people who played golf. I got really good at golfer's elbow and sciatic pain and things like that. And it's changed over the years. I think as I've grown, I'm attracted.
Changed in what way?
When I'd say now, when people come to me with, let's say, a golfer's elbow, they're more willing to look even deeper, that it might be on the heart channel. And that's the kind of work I really love to do. I think part of it has to do with my background too. I got my undergraduate degree in psychology, and I thought I wanted to be a psychiatrist. When I graduated.
And then something else happened.
Oh, yes, a lot of things happened. I started working as a social worker for a behavioral health care center, and wet behind the ears didn't even begin to describe that. It was like 22 years old, and I'd never really seen substance abuse and serious mental illness. And I was sitting in on all of the psychiatric appointments with people because I wanted to see what kind of meds were being used. And I started to wonder if that's really how I wanted to be with people. And at that time, I had this great boss. The year was 2000, and they were using the NADA protocol as part of their.
Oh, interesting. Really?
Yes. Yeah. They opened up this clinic downtown in downtown Tucson on Congress. And if you had a incarceration or a hospitalization that was drug related, receiving the NADA protocol was a mandatory part of your program. And I learned how to do ear acupuncture.
Before you were an acupuncturist?
Before I was an acupuncturist, and I loved it.
Oh, wow. What an introduction.
It really was. I mean, and I was afraid of blood.
Most of us are.
But like, it really made me feel queasy.
Uh-huh.
And, but yeah, we had I can't even remember how long our NADA training protocol was. But then I would go to this site, and we had about 20 lazy boy chairs in a room, and, put the points in, and just to be in the room and feel what was happening, the peace that was in there. And then for people to get up out of the lazy boy and say, I didn't know that this kind of relaxation was available without drugs.
Right.
I was like, oh, I think this is what I want to do. And started in acupuncture school, not even really knowing what I was getting into. It was one of those times where my life took that hard left, and I'm so glad it did.
So just like that, you're treating people with the 5 needles, and you're like, I'm just going to go learn to do this. There wasn't any hesitation. There wasn't any like, what am I actually thinking? Like, really? You were just like all in? What happened?
Well, it's funny because, yeah, I'd had this plan of going to medical school. I came back to Tucson. I was taking some more hard sciences that I'd sort of avoided as an undergraduate. I was getting ready to take the MCAT. And then I told my parents, I'm going to acupuncture school. And I remember my dad asked me, he said, when you graduate, will you actually be able to make a living?
It's a really good question. No, your father loves you. And that's a damn good question. It's a question I think everybody should ask. Can I make a living doing this?
And I remember when he asked that, I realized it had not even crossed my mind. And that's when I knew that I was really following my heart.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's a big boatload of trust.
I was also like 22 years old.
Yeah, your brain wasn't all the way fully developed yet. That was going to be a few years later. I think.
I remember sitting down for, in our TCM class and reading the Tao for the first time. And I still read it all these years later, regularly.
Of course you still read it all these years later. It's like, it's one of those books, every time you go open it up, it's like, oh, what's it going to say this time? And even though you've read a certain thing countless times, it just might have something new for you this time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you were 22. Didn't even occur to you, can I make a living? I would say at the age of 22, that's exactly the way you should be making decisions. I mean, I'm just reflecting back on my life. Like at the age of 22, if you're not pushing yourself into something really unknown, like what might happen, and And really, at the age of 22, what's the worst that can happen? You still got a lot of time to recover from any bad mistakes you make. I mean, unless you fall off a cliff or get deeply involved with drugs or, break, have limbs torn off or something. You can usually recover. So, like, why not at that age? I was in my mid 30s when I went to acupuncture school. So I was looking at a whole different set of constraints. Like, I've got a mortgage and I've got car payments and, I've been putting money into a retirement account. I can see at some point I'm going to want that, a whole different set of considerations. But yeah, at age 22, why the hell not?
I'm so glad that I did.
Yeah.
It really led me down this whole pathway in life. And the same year that I started acupuncture school, I also started studying yoga in earnest. And so for me, those two became so interwoven. And I was sort of experiencing the meridians and the energy in an embodied way. So yeah, it landed me all the way down here in Santa Cruz County. Again, following my heart, following love. And yeah, and this town has just really supported me. This whole community. So in Tubac, we have a population of about 1,500 people.
So this is small town America.
It is very small.
And it's rural, right?
It's rural. And where I live is even further south in Rio Rico. And we have a population of about 20,000. So this is more, the further south you go, the closer you're going down to the border, you're going to be more in, people who are still working class.
This episode is brought to you by Jane, the clinic management software that honestly just makes running a practice easier. Let's dive into something that's never easy, but sometimes necessary. Raising your fees. It can feel awkward, right? But here's a tip that can really help. Consider offering flexibility to your patients as you introduce the change. When patients face new fees, it's natural for them to feel uncertain or concerned. That's where flexibility can really make a difference. Offering options like a phased increase, suggesting a payment plan, or even taking a moment to talk things through can help to ease the transition. These thoughtful gestures show your patients that you're listening and care about them, which strengthens the trust you've worked so hard to build. If you're looking for more ideas on how to navigate these kinds of changes, head to frontdesk.jane.app and check out the article, How to Tell Clients You're Raising Your Fees. One last thing, if you're ready to give Jane a try, you can use the code CHIOLOGICAL for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. So you're in working class rural America.
Yes, that's where I live. And then
That's where you live. So tell me what it's like. I mean, it sounds like your practice is busy as you want it to be. What's it like living in rural America? I mean, so many people listening to this podcast, they live in big cities. I live in a moderate city, but you're like in Redneckville.
Well, yeah, so in my neighborhood, there is still open grazing. So, if you want to grow anything that you don't want the cows to eat, you've got to fence it off. So that is real. And you should also be very careful, at nighttime because black cows show up very quickly in front of you. I've got great views of the stars. In fact, this area where I live, it was designated some sort of like dark sky sort of zone. Not too far from us is an observatory. And so you can really see the Milky Way here at night. We don't have any lights, traffic lights. It's quiet. It's quiet, except my neighborhood does have a lot of barking dogs.
Okay, that sounds like rural America. Now, you haven't really ever practiced in a big city. You've always been this kind of small town rural acupuncturist, country doctor.
I practiced in Tucson for the first year after I graduated. I rented a space from my herb teacher, Ching Liu. Shout out to Ching. And I rented her space for 2 days a week and quickly outgrew that and needed to expand. And then at the same time, that commute. So I was living down in Amato, commuting back and forth to Tucson. And I was ready. I was ready to take the plunge. And so yes, I only had 1 year in the big city.
I often hear people talk about how hard it is to get a practice going in the bigger cities. And I get it. I mean, I used to live in Seattle. I've actually opened up a couple different clinics in Seattle over the years as more and more acupuncturists appear. Each time it would take longer to get a practice established because there used to be one acupuncturist in a portion of town. Now there's an acupuncturist on every block, sometimes more than one. And, I mean, competition's a thing. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it takes longer. But, the thought of going outside the city can be intimidating, especially if you're used to it, which I was. But the idea of like rural America, am I even going to like these people? And will anybody want to come see me? And just like, what's it like to live in a small town? So can you give us kind of a walkthrough of what life is like there and what your practice is like and how people feel about it?
What is my life like? Well,
I know it's a small question.
well, I see about 5 to 6 people a day, and I don't get started till about 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning because I love my morning time. I've got 2 high school kids, so I see them off to school. And, I have a practice, a meditation practice. I like to get out. There's a beautiful trail not far from my house along the Anza River. It's got a canopy of cottonwood trees. So I like to get out there. And I do feel like my connection to this land is very important. I really,
The place you are supports you in that sort of psycho-spiritual way.
it really does. These mountains, all the animals. When I just got home, my Wi-Fi signal is better here at my house than it is at my office. There was a road runner, running in front of the house. So yeah, I feel like I have a real connection to nature here and also to community. But it's different. I don't go to the bar. We have a couple bars, in our area, but my community is song circle, cacao ceremony, sweat lodge. Let's see, how else do I spend my time? I play the piano.
Mm. And you go to work when you feel like it in the middle of the morning because you like having the morning to yourself.
I do like having the morning to myself, and I like being home when my kids get home from school.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
It really is.
I think self-employment is just the coolest dang thing.
I don't know how well I would be at working for somebody else at this point. I could certainly try, but I really like my arrangement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear. Well, after 20 years, you're pretty acclimated to it, and it sounds like you have a practice that supports you financially, so that's important. To have a practice that allows us to live the rhythm of the life that we want to live. I mean, that's just a real benefit. You don't really get that when you're working for someone else, right? You're working on someone else's schedule, but when you're working for yourself, I mean, sometimes patients ask me for an early appointment, like, can you see me at 8 o'clock? And the answer is no. Because I also go to work around 9 o'clock because I like my mornings.
I did have, it was, I guess, about 2 years ago, I got into this place where I was feeling a little lonely, a little bit like a lone wolf. And so I went back and I taught at ASOM, the school that I graduated from, because I wanted to be back in my community. I wanted to be back speaking this language that had become so internal. Because, sometimes you can talk to patients about what your process is, but sometimes it's better not to. And it was so great to go back to the school and, first of all, to meet the next generation of people that are coming into our field is so exciting. I met so many amazing young people, and I was telling them, come out here, come practice with me. Just learn a little more Spanish. just learn a little more Spanish, come down south, come get out of Tucson because Tucson's quite saturated because there's a school there. And
Any city with a school is going to be saturated.
exactly. And it was so great to be in clinic and to be in a room where I heard our language being spoken. Uh, it was great. I did that for about 10 months. And then it was taking away, from my private practice, to go up to Tucson and work 1 day a week. But I found it so inspiring and I would definitely do it again.
It's tricky with community. I mean, if you're living in a town and you got a bunch of friends and they do acupuncture and you can go for, a walk along the river, it's easy. But if you're living in a place where there's not a lot of people that do what we do, well, I guess there's podcasts. There is that. But it's kind of, I hate to use the word deficiency, but it's one of the challenges of not being in a bigger city. But what I'd like to focus on a little bit, or just redirect the conversation in a sense, is the benefits of rural living and especially practicing in a rural place. Because my suspicion is there's plenty of people, young practitioners, are getting out of school and they want to get started and they want to be successful and they want to have a good practice. It's challenging in a bigger city. If there's a lot of acupuncturists, there's the competition piece. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it takes time. Everything in a city is more expensive. Your rent, your food, all that stuff. Talk to us a little bit about the benefits of practicing in a small town.
The benefits of practicing in a small town.
Yeah. I know you don't have much to compare it with, but
It's true. It's true. What are the benefits? Can you ask me a different question? Uh, let, let me just, I mean,
yeah, chew on it a bit. That's okay.
okay. All right. Yeah. You can always edit stuff, right?
Well, I can edit stuff, but here's this is what I love about a podcast conversation, right? Where it's authentic. So we hit a moment and go, I'm not so sure about that. Let me noodle on that, right? We can noodle through it together. We don't have to have an answer. We can just follow the process.
Well, I mean, one of the things that sort of comes to mind is, when I was first starting out here, heard that there was a Qigong class being taught at our local gym. And I was like, oh, yes, because that was part of my practice for 3 years when I was in school. We practiced medical Qigong and Tai Chi. And so I started going to that class. And maybe part of it is that you do seek out, you sort of find your people, like the Qigong teacher, like my neighbor a little further south who holds sweat lodge ceremony. You end up finding other people who may not speak your exact same language, but there's a energetic connection. There's a commonality. Like one of the things I've learned a lot about being in this area is more about, plants and herbs that are native to the desert. And that it happens, down across the line. They talk about herbs the same way we do. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it drying? Is it moistening? So, even though I didn't have other acupuncturists, I found other healers in my area. And yeah, that doesn't quite answer your question. The benefits of being in a small town, people really care about.
Well, it sounds like you found some community. I mean, some genuine, heartfelt connection with people that do something similar. It rhymes with what you do.
It does. It does. And when we can sort of talk philosophy or tell stories or sing songs, I see the similarity. I see the crossover completely. I feel it.
Well, you mentioned singing songs. Look, I don't know much about singing. I can carry a tune in a bucket if the bucket doesn't leak. But what I do know about singing is different voices and different pitches is what makes it beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a song circle going down here. And then, of course, drums quickly followed because, drums just are the heartbeat. And in that community, and I think that is the thing, is I maybe it's hard for me to separate how I'm in community and how I'm in business because they become so interconnected. I became part of the community not to try and grow my business, but that's what ends up happening because people care about you and they're curious about what you do and they've heard something nice about you or that you helped somebody and they want to experience it. They want to try it and see. And then the thing down here too is that if you help one person, you're going to end up seeing the whole family.
Yes. Even generations.
Oh, and I love that. That is my favorite work. I have a family that I work with that I treat the mother and all the sisters. And it's amazing to see the bloodline
Mm-hmm.
and how in different ways, but they're all in this family, all healing earth, the element of earth. And and I don't know if that happens in the city, but it definitely happens down here.
Yeah, I think well, you just pointed out something to me that I run into a bit where I live. Again, St. Louis it's not a big city. It's kind of a big town. It's not that big of everything's 20 minutes from everything. So, just to give you a sense of it. But this thing, like in Seattle, you're like really strict with your boundaries. I'm the acupuncturist and you probably don't even see people on the street or at the grocery store. I mean, maybe occasionally, but like I run into people I treat all the time. So I'm like, it's like I live in the community. It's not that how do I say this? It's not that I'm like not paying attention to the important boundaries you need to pay attention to. I do pay attention to them in some ways, especially because sometimes I run into people even socially. Social networks will bleed into my practice just because of the size of the city. You're living in an even smaller place. I think in some ways it makes it easier to build a practice because you just make connection with people and they're like, oh yeah, she's the acupuncturist in town. Go see her. So there's that. You're not advertising yourself. You're just available and you happen to be the person who does it. And people know you through friendship connections.
Exactly. I think that really is how it grew because, yeah, I don't have a website. I don't even have a sign on my door because, so I'll say this about the town that I practice in also, is that it's very tourist driven at certain times of the year. So we are in season, quote unquote, right now because it's very hot where we live for about 6 months out of the year. So from October through about April or May, this is a highly desirable place to come and vacation and play golf. And I don't have a sign on my door because I don't want people coming and knocking in and trying to get a walk-in appointment when I'm in deep session with somebody. I think the only advertising I do is I do have business cards that, if somebody asks for one, I've got one on hand. My cousin told me this was a good idea.
Well, it is a good idea. That's funny. That's really funny, right? A lot of people listening to this, oh my gosh, I'm working on the SEO for my website and I got this, I got that, I want people to know about me. And here you are, like, no sign on the door, like, don't bug me. I'm busy. I'm treating people.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there's no sign on the door, just the number out there.
I love it. Katie, it really bespeaks a difference between urban and rural in that way. Again, with being rural, you're embedded in this community, you're embedded in this network of relationships. And it's different in a big city. It's just different.
It really is. The further I go along on this path, the more I realize that these relationships that I have and that I've cultivated and I'm excited, there's still people I haven't met. There's still people coming to the area. It's changing. But it is these relationships that really sustain and nourish me, not just my practice, but my life.
Having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things you can do as a healthcare practitioner. Because a robust business is the ultimate expression of vital chi. And that's the heart of our medicine. I'm Julie Bairdontlock, and I help practitioners grow nourishing, profitable, authentic businesses that embody the generative cycle of Chinese medicine. This isn't about all yang all the time. It's about expanding your own internal capacity, growing collaborative relationships with your patients for ethical patient retention, and marketing is an extension of this medicine, not a necessary evil. You already know that everything is connected in your patients' lives and bodies. The same is true for your business. When we align your systems, your schedule, your pricing, and your offerings with you, we create flow, which means more spaciousness, more impact, and more joy. When you are in the flow, fully resourced in terms of chi, time, and money, your business becomes a source of healing, not just for your patients, but for you. Let's grow something rooted, radiant, and real. Visit lifeflowconsulting.com to learn more.
Of course. I mean, our practices are a portion of our life, an important portion. But yeah, of course, the relationships we have, the family we have, how they're connected to people and we're connected to them. I mean, that's what being human really is about, I think.
It is.
Just my working hypothesis.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on.
Again, I don't want to belabor the point, but I love this image of you having an office without a sign. You've got a phone, you don't have a website. You got cards. Maybe I'll give you one if I happen to have one on me. But
yeah, sometimes that happens. Sometimes I don't even have one, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Let me get a scratch piece of paper for you.
Yeah. Let me guess. You don't just hand your cards out. People have to ask you for it.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to make a comment about that. This is just my own thoughts on marketing for anyone interested in marketing. I think it's really important to keep business cards around in case somebody asks. Never give it out if it's not asked for.
I completely agree. Because I'm thinking a lot about, this next generation of acupuncturists. I think there's a lot of students and people who are new to the field that are listening to your show.
There's a ton of students that listen. It's cool.
Yeah. So I feel like, just to lend a hand to the next generation, when I first opened up my spot, even if I didn't have clients, I would go and be in my space. I would sit and be available in my space and inhabit it. And I would also walk around, not handing out business cards,
Mm-hmm.
right? I wouldn't walk into somebody's gallery or shop and say, oh, I'm the acupuncturist in town. Here's my card. But genuinely cultivate, hey, I'm new in town. And what do you sell here? What's going on here? And build that relationship. Because, like you said, it's so much better if somebody says, oh, do you have a card? It's a totally different exchange.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's an openness. It's a whole different kind of chi. It really is a whole different kind of chi. And I just think for myself about when someone's pushed a business card on me, it goes in the trash right away. And they go on my don't reach out to this person if I need this thing list.
Right. Yeah. Or like when they get shoved in your door or crammed underneath your windshield wiper blade. Yeah. Not as effective.
Not so effective. But the piece about building relationship. Hi, I'm new in town. Who are you? What do you do? Oh, I want to know more about that. Right? First of all, it's fun and you get to make some new friends. That's never bad. That's always good. And then they get curious about you. Yeah, I often think when it comes to marketing that there's also a thing, and I call it anti-marketing. It's the things that you do that not only are not effective, but they're detrimental.
Agreed. And to trust those connections. Like I think back to, she ended up becoming a dear friend, but I was probably only a year into back. So I was probably only 2 years out of acupuncture school. And a woman called me and she said, do you treat tumors? And I remembered because I just signed, my malpractice insurance thing that, it's very specific that we don't treat cancer, right? I remembered I'd signed that form. And so I responded to her. I said, well, I don't not treat tumors. And it began a really wonderful journey for me to work with somebody who was undergoing cancer treatment. And she was also a much, much beloved healer in our area. She was a massage therapist who'd had a practice down here, 20 plus years. And she brought me into her community of knowing the other healers that were already here and her patients. And so um, you just don't know when you're going to meet a person who is going to be of great influence in the web for you and connect you to other people that you need to know.
I find it to be a bit mysterious, actually. It's it's not something that can be, I mean, it's like it's something that can be conjured, but it can't be compelled. On occasion, there's these people that show up. It could be a patient that you have, it could be a connection you have with another healer or someone in the community. And they just, for whatever reason, who knows why, will not stop gossiping about your work.
Yes. I have a I have a patient who had a business, just to keep it all, because I'm in a small town, right? To keep it private. But it was a business that, attracts a lot of athletes. Let's put it like that. And she had her business during the pandemic, which was really difficult, especially when you have people in a small space sweating together. But she has this completely magnetic, but even more than magnetism, it's almost like she's the sun, that shines down on the valley. She put me into connection with so many amazing women who then, brought in their entire families into my practice, into my world. So, yeah, these relationships, it comes back to it over and over.
I think it does. And, I mean, we're talking about small town, we're talking about rural here. But I think that human relationship piece, that part about how you are and how you connect. I mean, it doesn't matter what the size of the city is that you're living in. If you're living that way, I think it's possible to build a practice because those connections, they continue. They're like dendrites, they're like nerve endings that like spread out to other nerve endings.
Exactly. And so maybe that would be the caution, to coming to a small town. You must love being in relationship with the community.
Not a great place to be anonymous.
No, there's not a lot of anonymity. Sometimes you wonder, like, what do people even think or say? And then I just don't go down that rabbit hole. That would be, you don't want to know. I don't want to know.
No, people think and say all kinds of weird stuff. I know I do, right? It's like, I mean, if you meditate at all and you watch your mind, it's like, oh my God, I'm thinking, what? Like, where did that come from? It's not me, right? It's running through my mind, but that's not necessarily me. And man, we're all kind of crazy that way.
Yeah.
So you like your small town.
Oh, I love my small town. It's funny because this space that I'm in right now, so I've had 3 different office spaces in the last 20 years. And this space I've been in, I moved in there in June of 2020, right? During all that destabilization that we all experienced of the pandemic. And when I moved into this space, it was supposed to be a temporary situation. She was an artist. She was going to California for the summer months. And she says, you can use my office for like 3 or 4 months. And in the end, she said, I'm not going to reopen my art gallery. You can keep the lease. So I took over the lease, but everything felt so impermanent. The pandemic had really shaken a lot of things. And I'd never really fully moved into that space. I never painted. It was very minimalistic. And it was just this summer, I looked around at my sort of bare walls and I thought, Katie, you've been here for 20 years. You're not going anywhere. And I I employed one of my dear friends who's an interior decorator and also an amazing healer. She does a lot of vocal toning, vocal sounding, getting people to really be in their own voice as a healing instrument. And she totally redid my office for me. Picked this gorgeous, it's kind of like a turmeric hug is how I would describe it.
I love it.
And she's amazing at thrifting things. Everything that's in my office has been refound, refurbished, and now it looks like a home. And it just felt deeply symbolic to me after 20 years to say, yeah, this is my home.
This is my home. Here I am.
Yeah, come into my office. This is where I spend a third of my life. And now I've spent, well, yeah, getting, I don't want to stay here. I want to keep growing here.
It's wonderful. It's really a blessing to have a sense of home and a sense of place. So powerful. And I'm thinking of something that you said a little earlier in the conversation when you were first starting out. This really struck me that in the beginning, even if you didn't have patients, you would go and be in your clinic. You would be available. You use the word inhabiting the space. I don't think this is to be underestimated. And maybe just because I've done a similar thing, that even, especially in the beginning, even if I didn't have patience to be in the practice, to be in the room, to be doing something there, to be doing something that was, in my mind, I would say working on the business. It could be working on my website. It could be tending to the plants in the office. It could be deciding to repaint it. It could be any number of things. But the important thing was I was there during my working hours attending to the practice. Even if patients weren't there, it's important to attend to the practice.
Exactly. I think it's almost sort of like a yes to the universe.
Absolutely.
Like, I want to be here.
I am here.
I'm here.
It's not I want to be here. I am here.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I am here.
Yeah.
Well, can I sing you a song?
Oh my goodness, no one has ever sung me a song on the podcast.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay. So this is a invocation to the teacher within, And I think that's always one of the things too is I've had so many great teachers. Haven't we? And even right on your podcast, right? I get to hear these great teachers every week coming through the airways. So it's a Tibetan chant. I better wet my whistle here.
Wet your whistle.
Wet my whistle.
And you got a great microphone there, so.
Thank you. This was lent to me from my dear friend who does regular podcasts. She says, oh, this one's the best. You got to use this one.
It's Pro Gear. You're using Pro Gear.
Om Urgin yogin tatsam pama gesar dong pola yachen chokin no trupne pama jongye jesudrak gordo kandroman por ke ki jesudrak truki jenjilapshir sexuso guru pama siddhi om. Home.
Home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful work that you do. Thank you for your wonderful laugh and for just bringing us all together as a community of acupuncturists and healers.
You're welcome. It's, I was going to say it's my pleasure. Sometimes it's my pleasure. Sometimes it's my work. But beyond that, it's a curious thing that I found for myself with this. Like so many things in my life, like all the best stuff in my life, really, honestly, never saw it coming. Never saw it coming.
Isn't that the truth?
It has been for me. All the best stuff in my life, I never saw it coming until it kind of appeared and I went, huh, what's that? Right? It's always been like a hunch. Very rarely is it like full blown, like bang, there it is. It's more like, huh, huh. And I get a hunch about it. I wonder what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing your voice, your song, your experience. It's a real privilege for me to get to hear all these stories and to share them with our community. It's a really weird profession that we have, and it's a really strange medicine that we practice. And, that's not a bug, that's a feature. And we have lots of opportunity to explore, and I'm grateful for this digital campfire that lets us share these stories together.
Yeah, I think what we do, it really is the great mystery. Even after doing this down here for 20 years, I mean, even today, this morning, I was in my office working with somebody and I was like, this is so mysterious. I love that you can never completely pin it down because, right, you can't pin down energy. You're in the flux, you're in the flow. And that keeps me very curious and interested and engaged.
It's one of the job benefits.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Wonderful. Well, Katie Munger, I've enjoyed our time together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Well, that puts a pin in today's conversation with Katie Munger. What really sticks with me is how much her practice has been shaped by the rhythm of rural life. Katie shared how living and working in a small town taught her to move at a different pace, one that allows for deeper relationships with her patients and a unique kind of healing that can only happen when time feels expansive. Her reflections on hands-on listening were a reminder of how much healing starts with simply being present. It's not always about what you do, but how you show up. Katie's approach to building trust and cultivating meaningful connections within her community, it showed me that rural practice isn't just about treating her patients. It's about being part of the fabric of their lives. Another piece that stood out was Katie's willingness to follow her heart, even when the path wasn't clear. Her story is a testament to how listening to your intuition and sometimes taking risks can lead you to where you're meant to be. There's a kind of bravery in leaning into the unknown and finding your footing as you go along. If there's one takeaway from today, it's that healing isn't about just techniques. It's about connection, presence, and being willing to let your practice evolve alongside the community that you serve. Thanks for listening in. Be sure to tune in again next week for another inquisitive geological conversation. Well, here we are at the end of this episode. If you've listened up to this point, you're either a rabid fan of geological or the forward button on your podcast player stopped working. If you are indeed a fan of the podcast, you can help us to bring new episodes to our community of practitioners by supporting us with a membership or a one-time contribution. Details, of course, are on the website. That's it for today, friends. Join us again next Tuesday for another thoughtful episode of Geological.